And reporting on that regulatory is similar to many, many other districts, so that's not out of the ordinary. The second report in the, or second letter in the financial statements in our report is our report on internal control over financial reporting and on compliance under government auditing standards. So this year we did run into some issues that rose to the level of findings, which are reported near the back of the audit report. You'll see details on each of those, as well as the district's corrective action plan that's been submitted. There were 4 items that were classified as material weaknesses, and there were 2 items that were classified as significant deficiencies. Some of these are repeat findings from prior years. Just to point out, there were some significant adjustments made in cash balances between some funds, so I just wanted to let you know about those. Those adjustments will be posted and then reflected in your fiscal year 23 beginning balances. There was an increase in the cash balance in the capital projects fund of approximately $559,000. There's a decrease in the cash balance in the O&M fund of $1.55 million, and then an increase in the Ed fund of $1.37 million. Those were primarily the result of adjustments in ESSER revenues that were inadvertently recorded in O&M that should have been recorded in the educational fund. With the ESSER grants, there's multiple funding streams, and it is quite complicated to figure out where the reimbursements are coming in for, so there was adjustments that needed to be posted to get that all straightened out and then reported to ISB. I will also let you know that because of those ESSER adjustments, we also found, I guess, where the district overclaimed expenditures. Really, in reality, you've claimed them early because you still have ESSER grant projects going on. But those are reported to ISB, and then the district will work with ISB to figure out how to rectify that. I don't think it will cause the district to have to pay back a ton of funds or anything because those projects are all ongoing. So that's a positive thing. One item that is not finished yet is our single audit, which is our grant compliance work. We just issued the audit late December. The single audit portion is due within a month after that. We're probably 80% through on that, so that will be done timely. In fact, this week I just got the last 2 pieces, well, one of the last 2 pieces, and we're rigorously following up on the very last piece to get that report finalized. Just a couple financial statement highlights. There were positive increases to fund balances in all of the funds except O&M, capital projects, and tort. In O&M, primarily, you're going to get reimbursed by ESSER funds for those expenditures. And then in capital projects, that's the whole point of the capital projects fund, is to spend the USCB bond proceeds and the ESSER funds that were allocated to that fund for capital projects. So that accounts for the deficit there. Capital Projects Fund did spend $11.1 million on capital projects this year. And some other notable highlights is that the district received $8.7 million in fiscal year 22, with more to be reimbursed in FY23, and then additional projects in FY23. Your grants and aid funding did increase almost $2 million over fiscal year 21. Your child nutrition federal revenues increased by almost $1.4 million over the prior year. And expenditures across funds increased in correlation with those additional ESSER and other grant funding amounts that you received. The district did not issue any new debt in fiscal year 2022. There is pension information within the audit report in the disclosures. The state reported that they made on-behalf payments for TRS and THIS of $14 million on the behalf of the district. The net pension liability that's out there for TRS is actually almost $194 million. However, they've only designated $2.28 million of that as the district portion, and the remainder of that is the state's responsibility. And then IMRF is in a net pension asset position right now. So things have turned around at IMRF, and most entities are basically have more assets than they do liabilities sitting in those funds allocated to your entity. Every year, there's an estimated financial profile score that is issued with the AFR. And in FY22, your score was 3.7 out of 4, which is the recognition category. That's the highest category. They look at things like your fund balance to revenue ratio, your days cash on hand, your long-term debt margin score. That is a slight increase over the prior year, and that was due to your long-term debt margin score going from a 1 up to a 2. So those are the highlights that I had. Does anybody have any questions?
There was a question that came up. Chris, do you remember your question earlier?
Yes, I mean, you may have answered already. The grants that we have, like the Youth Empowerment Grant, are you in the midst of auditing those? Is that when you talked about the single grant audit?
The Youth Empowerment Grant, I believe, originated from state funding rather than from federal funding. So that isn't included in the universe or population that we're auditing. It will be ESSER funds that we are looking at for the federal audit compliance after going through the formula of what we're required to test, how much coverage we need, how big the programs are. If we've audited them recently, there's a whole litany of criteria to select those.
The ESSER issue, you think will be corrected because, or will be okay on it because there's ongoing most of it reflects ongoing projects.
Yeah, I think they'll just be able to adjust either reimbursements in FY23 or just reallocate those across the various funding sources.
By adjusting reimbursements, we will not receive a reimbursement in order to catch up with the double reported
Exactly.
expense.
Yes. So that you got the reimbursement a little early.
Got it.
Is what it boils down to.
Prepaid.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Anyone else? Questions for Carmen?
I'm not sure how the youth empowerment money works because it comes from the Illinois Criminal Justice Information Authority. But I do know that they have very strict guidelines in terms of expenditures, and they monitor our expenditures very closely.
Previously, I thought we indicated that there was going to be an audit of that grant. Is there?
Like they actually have their own, like in fact, it's the most complicated and strict grant that we have. Like if we say we're going to buy pens, they want to make sure we buy pens. And if we say we're going to buy pencils, we can't buy pens. So that's how strict this grant is.
I appreciate that. I just would have hoped that we would have an audit so that on an annual basis we're clear of any issues.
We could ask the Illinois Criminal Justice Information Authority to make sure that they do that, because I think they do that anyway. So we can ask them to give us a report.
Yeah, they may do that as part of their own monitoring procedures.
They do. We have some pretty lengthy paperwork that we're responsible for, and I'll make sure that you get a copy of that.
Thank you.
All right, no
Thank you,
further
Carmen.
questions?
Well, thank you for the opportunity. We appreciate it. And those final copies of the reports will be submitted to the district office so that you have those on hand when those are complete.
Thank you. Okay, we're on to number 3, instruction.
There's no additional information in terms of instruction. We're continuing to focus on the next fiscal year, 23-24. We're purchasing materials. We'll start training our teachers on some of the ELA and math materials. And we're hoping to make sure that the high school has all the materials that they need based on the requests that were given to us from the high school. Oh, and then just a reminder, I heard one of our students say that we're not doing CBE. Slate, which is our grading system, is not competency-based education, it's just the grading system. That grading system has become very confusing because it's changed at least yearly and sometimes in the middle of a year. And so we are in the process of piloting, moving to Skyward and using Skyward as our grading system, which shouldn't be a problem because we've always used Skyward and we still use Skyward for our transcripts and our final grades. And so by next school year, we will not use Slate as our grading system, we'll use Skyward.
Any questions from the board about that? No? All right. Finance? That's it? Well, it's number 4 here. Number 5, personnel.
Good evening, Board President, Dr. Walters, and Board of Education. Just to give you an update on personnel, we are currently posting positions with the district taking over transportation. Next year, there are several positions that need to be posted and several positions that need to be filled in order for us to take over transportation. So we are in the process of posting those positions and getting those filled as soon as possible. Also, by next week, we will be sending a link to all of our principals to ask them about their current vacancies in their buildings so that we can update our website with open positions and make sure that we're posting any new positions that our principals need to staff their buildings for the 2023-24 school year. Are there any questions? Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Fountain. So we're on to item F, public comments. And we have Jacob Jenkins for Serve Illinois.
Good evening, Dr. Sorry. I have that speaking voice, so I'll try to back up a little bit. But good evening, Dr. Walters, members of the board, and all in attendance. My name is Jacob Jenkins. I'm the Volunteer Programs Coordinator for the IDHS Bureau of Volunteerism and Community Service. I am here today on behalf of the Governor's Office, IDHS Secretary Grace B. Hull, Serve Illinois Board President Natalie Verlette, and our entire Board of Commissioners. The project that brings me here today is your MLK King project. On behalf of our commission, we would like to thank Dr. Walters for allowing us to partner with her amazing staff and students. Currently, there are 285 Kankakee Junior High students hard at work preparing to try a historical case as part of the MLK Justice Learning Lab. Dr. Walters, thank you for your leadership as well as your willingness to be innovative. So on behalf of Governor Pritzker, Secretary Hull, and our board chair, Natalie Verlette, I would like to present you with the Office of the Governor's Illinois Commission on Volunteerism and Community Service Certificate of Appreciation. When your project is complete, you will have literally donated thousands of hours of volunteerism to the state of Illinois, so we just want to thank you. And I have a certificate for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have to get a picture. Oh, yeah. Okay, she's gonna get her picture. Oh. You don't mind stepping over this one? I waited 3.5 hours.
You could just stay this way. We're on to G, board report. So from me, the board has talked about our superintendent search work, and we're in the process of setting dates so that we can begin the conversation among ourselves. And so I have asked board members to look at the month of February for at least two dates. Well, I did ask for January, y'all cried. They cried. Anyway, so if you have time in January in your calendar, please send me those dates. And if you have, and send me at least two dates for February so that I can see what dates work for the entire board. And this would be an evening meeting. If it's during the week, we can meet on weekends. If the board is amendable to that. And what I'm asking the board to do, what we're each to do is to come up with 3 things that we want in a superintendent and bring those with us, and then bring any conversation that you want to have among yourself, just what you're thinking about what the next leader of this district should look like. You know, what we're looking for in that person. So that's your assignment. And I hope to hear from you expeditiously. So does anyone else on the board have anything that they wish to speak about? No? All right, we will move on to item H, consent agenda, action items. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Moved by, I wasn't looking. Was that Gavin?
Moved by
William. Moved by Williams, he looked away, so. Moved by Williams, second by Gavin, thank you. Madam Secretary, can you please call the roll?
Bolin,
Aye.
Gathing,
I abstain on number 5, but aye.
Johnston. Aye. Verret,
Yes.
Williams,
I have to abstain on number 5.
Yes.
Archie. Wells,
Yes. And the motion carries. Action items, number 1, approval of board member expense reimbursement.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Second.
Moved by Bolin, seconded by Gavin. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Gathing,
Yes.
Johnston. Yes. Verret,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Archie. Bolin,
Yes.
Wells,
Yes, the motion carries. On to number 2, approval of lease for transportation building at 175 Eastgate Industrial Parkway.
So moved.
Moved by Gavin. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Johnston. Questions? Madam, I'm sorry, questions?
Yes. The building, how big is this building, and what improvements do we have to make to this building?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. What improvements?
What improvements do we have to make to the building that's gonna be big enough for the expansion that we're gonna have to have?
Yes, it will be big enough to house about 70 to 75 buses. The building, they will update the painting and put in new tiles, and we were able to negotiate down $400 an acre, and also negotiate in 2 months of free rent if we went with a 6-year lease.
And it's the old transportation side.
Yeah, it's a transportation site now that's for student use, and Illinois Central is currently using.
Is that gonna have, you're gonna, for the electric buses? So have a section for that too?
Yes, we will be able to negotiate with the leaser about any improvements that we would put in or that they would put in for electric buses.
Is there going to be offices, and is that going to be updated, or?
Yes, so there are all offices in there now, and there's also a room, 2 rooms for meetings and training sessions for any new hires that we have.
Is there gonna be room for other district vehicles?
Yes, there will be
Our
room for
garage.
other district vehicles. We have in the back, right now on, if you looked up Google Maps of the property, you can count 64 buses that are parked there and still plenty of room to fit other vehicles.
Are we planning on keeping our vans there?
We haven't discussed that yet, because that's a little bit farther away from a majority of our schools and a majority of the calls that we get during the day. So currently, we are going to continue housing them at the high school, but we do have room there also. The property that's right behind the property that we will be leasing is also available, and the owners of the property said they'd be willing to purchase that property and make updates to it if we ever decided that, yes, we wanted all the vans and some more, and we needed some more room.
Is the board done? There's been a motion and a second. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Johnston,
Yes.
Verret,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Archie, Bolin,
Aye.
Gathing,
I'd like to say that I am voting aye, but this is a big step for Kankakee School District 111. Our brother and sisters districts in the area have always done their own busing, and we're venturing out to do it ourselves, and have to give Mr. Savage a hand on the job and work that he's done for us thus far. And I vote yes.
Wells,
Yes. Motion carries. And we're on to item 3, approval to accept bid from Midwest Transit Equipment for the purchase/lease of buses.
So moved.
Moved by Gavin, second.
Second?
Second by Johnston. Are there any questions from the board?
I looked and must admit I skimmed, but how many buses are we purchasing versus what we're leasing?
So we're leasing 44 Type C buses, and then we will have 4 wheelchair accessible buses. So 48 buses total that we would be leasing. And then we are looking at purchasing 25 additional buses so that we would own them. And then through the EPA grant that has 10 rounds of funding, they just completed their first round this year. Herschel School District was able to receive $9.87 million to get 25 electric buses at $400,000 apiece. So the idea would be, and part of the grant money is you have to use those buses for a year. So when we get to round 3 stage of funding, that we would be putting those 25 buses up for trading in to get electric buses.
And initially, the cash flow from this is coming from, help me out here, where?
From the transportation fund. So the leases would be what we've built into our budget for that I presented back in November.
The purchase, is there sufficient funds in the current transportation fund to do that?
Yes,
The purchases?
yes.
Right. And then the leases, we get reimbursed as we go for
Yes, and the purchases,
two-thirds roughly, right?
we would also get reimbursed for the purchases too. So we can depreciate those, the $36,000 a piece for the bus at 20%. So over a 5-year schedule of depreciation. So if we just had kept them 1 year, then we could also, in the EPA funding and grants, they do allow you, if the buses are 2012 or later, or 2012 or newer, that you can actually then not turn those buses in, but we might be able to also resell those buses and still get the grant money for the new electric buses.
And our reimbursement rate is roughly, I think, 60 to 70%, somewhere in the.
Yeah, about
somewhere-
60%. They say 80% of 80%, because that's what they cut it down right off the bat, is they're gonna reimburse you. They take the 20% off, it's 80%, and then they usually, depending on how much the state legislature gives to the Illinois State Board of Education, that money goes into one big pot. How much money people request, the school districts request, determines the exact percentage rate for that particular school year.
Okay. Thank you for your information.
All right, there is a motion and a second on the floor. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Verret,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Archie,
Yes.
Bolin,
Aye.
Gathing,
Aye.
Johnston,
Aye.
Yes, and the motion carries. We're on to Number 3,
Number 4,
I'm sorry. Number 4, purchase radio equipment and service plan from ABLCC for the Transportation Department. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Gavin, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Archie. Are there questions?
I did say it there, but you can take it. Deb said it matter. Give it to Deb.
No question?
yeah, I'm assuming these are this most up-to-date video and radio. Does this include the videos?
No, since we just approved Midwest Transit, the 44 Type C buses and the 4 wheelchair accessible buses will come with cameras.
Okay.
The 25 additional buses will put matching cameras on those when we get the exact specs that are on the buses that we're leasing, so we have all the same cameras. These radios would be the same radios that we use throughout the district, and the nice thing about these radios is they go over cellular network, so no matter how far the buses are away, we'll be able to communicate with our buses. So sometime when we get up towards 80 or, north of 80, when we're going to Thornwood for, some competitions and things like that, the radios do not work as well or do not work at all, but now being on cellular service, we will not have that issue.
And if you'll go back to the videos, I should have asked that, but I didn't. The videos the video cameras, are those as good as we can get in terms of, so we can actually identify people from the images?
Yeah, so those are 2022 buses that we are receiving, so those have the most up-to-date cameras that won't be more than a year to year and a half old, and do have very good picture quality and resolution so that we can get the information we need when needed quickly, efficiently, and get it to our schools.
Great, thank you.
I believe that, at least the videos that I've seen, I could identify exactly who was doing what. So I don't think Illinois Central has shortcut us on the videos.
I was just responding or reacting to during my 5 years at the board, there have been incidents that we could not, the resolution quality of the videos, I was told, was not sufficient to identify the people.
Not on
As
the
long,
bus.
as long as we're there now, that's all I care about.
Since I started, the only problem we had is actually getting the video not working or the buses not having the video on.
But
So,
if you could see them, you could see exactly what's going on.
Great. Good.
All right. There is a motion on the floor. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Williams,
Yes.
Archie,
Yes.
Bolin,
Aye.
Gadding,
Yes.
Johnston,
Yes.
Verret,
Yes.
Wells,
Yes, and the motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Savage.
thank you very much.
Okay, item J, old business, board community involvement. I put this on the agenda because I had asked, a while back that board members bring, to the attention of to our attention, items or, events that they think that the board should be participating in the community. So if you would, take a few minutes and send the names of those events to me so that I can share them with the superintendent, so that we can then come back to you with a list of things that we think the district can afford to support and board members can attend in the community to support the community. So you need to make a list, send it to me, and I will share it with the superintendent. And if you don't make a list, I will. I'll make a list, and we'll be going where I want to go. All right, so now we have information and proposals. It's the usual stuff, and you have, oh, I'm sorry. Let's, Ms. Fountain, can you come forward? Good evening,
I would like to introduce, oh, now it's on. I would like to introduce our new Assistant Superintendent of Business and Finance, Mr. Daniel Savage. Can you please stand? So just a little bit of background about Mr. Savage. Mr. Savage received his Bachelor's of Arts degree in Business Management from North Central College, his Master's of Arts teaching in National Louis University, a Master's of Arts degree in School Leadership, and Mr. Savage has an endorsement or endorsements in business, marketing, computer education, and has obtained his principal certificate. Currently, Mr. Savage is our Director of Transportation, and we are proud to welcome him as the Assistant Superintendent of Business and Finance for Kankakee School District 111.
So, back to item K, the normal stuff that we are used to seeing. Calendar notes, January 16th, school will be out for Martin Luther King Day. And then February 13th is our next Board of Education meeting at Kankakee High School. If there's nothing further from the board, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
Moved by Gavin, second by Williams. All in favor?
Aye.
This meeting is now adjourned.